everyone, and welcome to the University of Law podcast and to our Future Pupils series. I'm Jo Lunnon, Future Pupil Programme Coordinator, and in this episode we are going to be talking about the pupillage experience and applications for pupillage with our wonderful guest, Myria Anthony. So hi, Myria.
Hi, Jo.
Do you want to just start by kind of telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you arrived at this point in your journey to the bar?
Of course. I'm originally from India, from a small town. I moved to the UK when I was 18. And I've been there ever since. I'm a career changer. So I've had a multitude of experiences. I've had 10 years in the corporate sector. I then had a couple of years in the non-profit sector advocating for girls and young women in countries like Africa and India and emerging markets. And I then transitioned to law about 2 years ago. I did the GDL and I've just completed the bar. And apart from my obsession with the criminal law, I am obsessed with fitness. I train nearly every day. I box or run, and I used to play competitive tennis when I was really young.
Is there anything that you have not done? And don't do?
No, I've literally done it all. This came out in my I'm sure we'll get onto it. Come on. In my pupillage interviews, I was literally asked this question. I've had every single experience you can think of. I've been in the banking sector. I've been in the consulting sector. I've been in the non-profit sector. I was even in the research and analytical sector, and now law. So yeah, I've really had a tremendous career so far, but I'm really excited.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing maybe a bit later in our conversation about how all those experiences kind of helped you to get pupillage, and perhaps also maybe about how you found a way to talk about them and kind of condense them, because I know something that a lot of people find quite stressful when they're applying for pupillage is knowing which experiences to talk about, particularly when they do have a lot of them. I think particularly for career changers. So I'll definitely be asking about that later on. But for now, do you want to, just tell me what first kind of drew you to the bar? So what made you kind of go for that career change?
Yeah, this is a lovely story to tell. It was 2023 July, and life presented me with two opportunities. I was earning really well at that point, worked in a big firm, and I really had two choices. I was like, could I keep doing the same thing? And my career has been invaluable in terms of the experiences it's given me, but I never loved what I did. I was never, I never had that passion, and I felt a bit bored. I was 35 at that time. And there was the second part, which was, I always say it's the road less traveled. It's the Robert Frost poem, which really resonates with me. And I was like, should I give it all up? Like literally give up a 5-figure salary, take the leap and do something really interesting, not knowing if it's going to work. And everyone thought I was crazy. I got a lot of flack from my friends. My family were shocked, supportive, but shocked, and was like, what are you doing? Because they're all business. My dad's a business leader. And so it was really, it was a shock to everyone. But I decided I wanted that challenge. So I decided to go onto the GDL, and I didn't know till I did the GDL, until actually I spoke to one person, Amy, who's been on this podcast, and she's a barrister now. I didn't realize I could be at the bar. I didn't realize someone like me could have a career at the bar, and everyone kept telling me, go do SQE, you've had this riveting, this great commercial background, you earn loads in a law firm, you could be a partner someday. But there was something about the bar, speaking to barristers, and it was, I think, at my first mock trial that I knew there was no turning back. I was like, I'm going to do the bar and I'm going to be a criminal barrister. And that was it. I think when you defend for the first time your client on a Section 18 charge and you are in court, and I just loved every moment of it. It was the best experience of my life. It was at that point I was like, it's the bar. I'm gonna do it.
The best experience of your life until you do it for real in pupillage, I imagine.
Yes, of course. I can't wait. I literally just finished my exams and I was like, I can't wait to be in court.
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, I'm actually really kind of glad to hear you say that with your experience with the GDL, actually, because I also did the GDL and I also didn't know until quite far through it which route I wanted to go down. And funnily enough, it was also a conversation with someone in the employability team, so not Amy, but Anna, at ULaw, that made me kind of go for it, because maybe it sounds similarly to you. I had been feeling I'm not the right person to be a barrister. I wasn't Oxbridge, that sort of thing. And they said, look, it's not going to hurt you to apply for a scholarship, so why don't you try it? And then in my scholarship interview, had a kind of debate question and just was like, this is the best thing. I can't believe people get paid to do this. So yeah, I think the employability team is so helpful with that sort of thing, like helping figure out what path you want to go down.
Yeah, I did mention Amy, or I should have said it was actually Anna as well at the start. Anna has been, and we'll get on to this, but Anna has been with me over the last 2 years. I couldn't have done it without her. I did do multiple rounds. It was Anna who pushed me. I didn't get the scholarship the first time. I got it the second time. I got 2 major awards. And so it was really Anna, Amy, Anna, and the entire employability team at ULaw that motivated me. I sent that Anna thank you email a couple of days ago, and it was just about believing in me. And I'm impatient, but Anna was so patient, and she told me what to do. And I actually will come on to this, but I deferred the bar course. It was due to Anna. It was the right call because I had this shot at the scholarship for the second time. So it was huge. They were hugely supportive at
Oh, good. Well, I'm as you're saying, I'm excited to kind of get into that later on, because if you know me, I personally feel that the bar team in our employability team needs like a constant shout out, because they're just a phenomenal guiding hand for so many people. But we're going to talk now about kind of the application part of applying for pupillage. So before I sort of ask more specifically about the application and things like that, how did you begin preparing to apply? Like, what were the preliminary steps you took before you even started like drafting your application? So maybe things like, how did you pick chambers, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I started my first round on the GDL. My first point of contact was Anna with her spreadsheets. I was very new to the bar, so I actually didn't know much about the different types of sets, the different types of chambers. So I did a lot of research. Anna was helpful, but I did a lot of research into who do I want to target, how many applications do I want to do. I went to the career. Actually, ULaw had a bar careers meet, which was really useful because I met a lot of barristers and spoke to them. I spoke to employability. Actually, put me in touch with other pupil barristers, so I spoke to them and understood their experiences and what chambers was like. I went to the bar pupillage fair. Once I had done all of that research, then I started the applications. But it was really, I spoke to so many people. I spoke to my tutors. I really wanted because this is a career change for me. I wanted to make a really informed decision and not just, randomly apply to sets. And like I said early on, it was criminal law, but I didn't know whether. Actually, the second round, it was purely only criminal sets. The first round was criminal and a bit of mixed sets because I also did some work with families, and so I wasn't sure, should I have a mixed set or should I go for a criminal set? But it was really speaking to as many people as possible, going to chambers events. That was I went to so many events and I learned so much from them, and then I did my applications.
Okay, that all sounds like really thorough and actually like relevant preparation for applying. I think there's a lot that people can and kind of should take away from that, and maybe one of the key things I would say is actually, as you say, going to chambers events, having conversations with real people, because there is only so much that you can find on a chambers website. And that isn't to say don't look there. Of course do. Of course look at their LinkedIn. And from my experience applying, obviously you're not going to have first-hand real experience with every single chambers, but it does sound like kind of just in terms of laying the groundwork in the months and weeks building up to doing those applications, if you can do what you did and have conversations and just chat to people and interact and learn more about the areas of law, it puts you in a really, really good place.
Yeah, it really did. The second time around, I can say that it was the minis that actually, so the first time was all the events and, events at the end as well. Second time around, I had done minis at all the sets I wanted to, not all the sets, but most of the sets I wanted to get into. That were my first 3 choices. And so I really, I learned so much from those experiences.
Actually, so you mentioned that was the difference maybe between your first and your second round of applying. Would you feel comfortable giving everyone kind of a quick rundown of, how many rounds of applications you did each time, how many you applied to, that sort of thing?
Yeah, the first round, actually, I didn't apply to that many. I think I can't remember how many I did the first round, but I'll give you the stats for the second round because I have them at the top of my head. I think I had applied to about maybe 10 the first time around. I only got two first rounds, and I was really disappointed as someone who had a really flourishing corporate career and was kind of climbing the ladder there. To be rejected was a shock to the system. And I had a fantastic first round interview, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't understand why I didn't get a second round. It was very upsetting. The difference, I think, there was a number of things that were different from the first round to the second round. One, I did way more applications. I did double the amount of applications in my second round. I had 12 first round interviews. Wait for this. I had 5 second round interviews, and I had 3 offers. And that was a shock. I didn't expect that. I actually didn't. I had no idea. On Pupillage Day, I was like, I'm not going to get anything. And the offers just came in from 9:30, and I was in shock. I was literally elated the whole day. But the difference was, what I did was, because I didn't get this I'm a member of Inner Temple, and because I didn't get the Inner Scholarship the first time round, Anna was the one who told me I was going to start the bar straight after the GDL. And I said to defer, because to give me another shot at the scholarship and to build up my legal work experience. So even though I had 10 years of work experience, what I did was I went and worked as a senior paralegal for 6 months between the GDL and the bar. That really stood out, I think. And during that time, I did everything possible. I did pro bono work. I came to semi-final of one of the chambers moots. I did essays. I did mock trials. I did so much in that 6 months, combined with like actual legal work experience, that I think really made the difference for my second round. And I also had so much help on my second round, not only employability, but I had pupil barristers and those who had just got pupillage looking at my applications, giving me feedback and really helping me, get those first round interviews. So I think that was what made me so successful in the second round.
Thank you very much. I think I had to be fair, a relatively similar experience. I applied twice. I applied for the first time while I was on the bar course, actually. I think I applied to 13, and again, I only got 2 first rounds. And it is really, really hard, I think, particularly in your first year of applying, when you don't really understand yet that rejection is so normal and so not personal and so a part of the pupillage process. And it felt really horrible. And similarly, both of those interviews, well, actually, one of them didn't, but one of those interviews I thought went really, really well. And I remember asking for feedback after, and they just sort of said, like, it was great, it was a good interview, but you're just not ready yet. And at the time, I was really hurt by that, because I was like, what do you mean? I feel like I've done everything I can to get ready. And then when I came to applying the second year that I applied, which is the year that I got pupillage, I then understood what they meant. I hadn't been ready, and similarly to you, I got loads of experience in between the 2 rounds. I worked in the Court of Appeal, which I think really helped. And then I applied for 17, I think, and I got 5 first rounds, 3 second rounds, and then 2 reserves and an offer. So it was a kind of similar thing of, actually, sometimes it can be a blessing, I think, not getting it in your first round, because that gives you space to get more experience, familiarize yourself even more with the profession and things like that.
Yeah. That's so similar. Wow, I love that. I love that I don't love the rejection bit, because I really, I feel I hear everything you're saying, and it's exactly how I felt. I loved what you said about not taking it personally, and Anna kept reminding me of that, because I took it very personally. I did also get feedback, but and one of my interviews was a complete car crash, and so it was very hard. It was very hard to get over that rejection. But like you said, I think it made me just a better candidate for the second time round.
Yeah, I think that's completely, completely true. And actually, it's going to come up later, so I'll ask you now. Did you have any sort of particular tips or approaches to dealing with rejection, or challenges that you kind of faced along the journey of applying for pupillage?
Yeah, coming from 10 years in the corporate sector, I thought I was good at rejection because I had a job where I had to convince institutions like Goldman Sachs to donate funds, and you don't always get a yes. And so I was like, okay, I'm used to this, but the bar is a completely different ball game. I took I took it really personally initially, but I have to say the support of employability, the support of pupil barristers who had been through the journey, barristers who I knew, who actually, there was a head of chambers who had, or the head of crime who I had a first round with, that was the car crash. And he said to me, don't give up. You can do it. Because I said to him, be honest, can I do it? Because I don't know. I'm, 35, career changer. Do I actually have a shot at this? And it was that, actually. I think it was the reassurance from barristers that persuaded me to keep going.
Yeah.
I also, as I mentioned, I train, so I box. So all my frustration was taken out with boxing and throwing weights and also a bit of yoga, trying to meditate. But I think for me, it was, I have made this big decision to give up everything and do this. It's going to take some time. It's not going to, everyone's journey is so different. And initially, I came into this thinking, it'll work out somehow. But I had to be told over and over again, it will take time, but you will get there. And I think it was those words and the support that kept me going. And I just kept remembering every time I was upset. I did loads of, also when I was doing mini pupillage applications, I got loads of rejections. I had to do so many to get, so it was the bar is full of rejection. And I can sit here saying this today, confidently, that is really what made me better. And I think hopefully will make me a better advocate, because I've been told you're going to you're going to face rejection all the time. So get ready for it.
That's a really good point. I think that's just to circle back to something you said earlier, I think it's a really good idea to have something that is non-legal, that allows you to channel the frustration and the pain of rejection. Like boxing is a really good one, running for some people. Unfortunately, for those people who are in my life, I just sort of took it out on my friends, parents, fiance. So maybe I needed to have taken up boxing. But I think the point you made about hearing from other barristers who are doing the job, yes, you can do this, like you've got the skills that you need, is a really good reason, in case anyone needed another reason, to focus on building networks and to seek out feedback. Obviously, the key reason why getting feedback and networking is helpful is that you're getting the feedback. But above and beyond that, if it also allows you to, as it sounds like it has for you, get confidence from those people and reassurance from someone in the job that you can do it, I think that's also really helpful. I might kind of take us back to the actual application, if that's all right. So how did you approach the application process itself? So the writing part of it, was there anything that you found to be particularly challenging about writing those applications? Maybe, for example, well, I'll let you answer that first, but I will definitely ask you how you found kind of selecting from the incredible experiences that you've had, what to talk about. But yeah, just generally, how did you find it first?
Yeah, I found it really overwhelming, to be honest. And my first set of applications, looking back, were I don't want to say terrible, but because I hadn't had, the feedback and the constructive criticism and all of that, the first set was very verbose. It was also, I wasn't bringing out my experiences. I had a friend tell me on the second time, because I've also had 10 years of experiences, I didn't know which ones to bring out. I didn't, I was just throwing things in there because I thought it made me sound good. I was not really tailoring my answers. The second time around, I spent so much time on every application. I think I spent one day over the winter break doing an application. Like I literally dedicated that day to it. And I would go through so many iterations. But what I really drew out is I did a lot of deep digging personally as well to understand why I wanted to be a barrister and not just give the standard. Everyone's going to say advocacy. Everyone's going to say interpersonal skills. It's really understanding what were my unique strengths? What can I offer? I had this amazing career, and it was, what are the specific experiences that I can draw for that? What are the experiences that made a difference? For example, the advocating for girls and young women in Africa and India. Not everyone will have that. And so it was really drawing out specifics. It was using fitness, using different stories. It was finding experiences that would make me stand out, because I was told, these are there are hundreds of applications, and, barristers are going to view it on at night. They're super busy. Don't make it lengthy. Be concise, be succinct, be to the point. And my second round was it was to the point. It was, succinct. It gave you the story. It told you about me. It also, I did a lot of research into understanding what are chambers marking on, because different sets have different criteria, and using that criteria to tailor my answers, which I didn't do the first time around. And I went through at least 3-4 people who gave me feedback on each of my applications. And there was no copy paste the second time around. It was literally, why this chambers? Specifics. By that time, I'd known a lot about the chambers because of everything I'd done in the year. And so it was very tailored to that particular set.
There's so much there that is like gold dust, I think, for anyone who's about to start applying. Some things that, like, if I can just kind of highlight, because these are things I wish I knew in my first round, that it sounds like, again, that sort of made the difference for you between the rounds. In my first round of applications, I weirdly didn't feel like talk about anything that was non-legal in terms of my experiences and stuff. And hearing you talk about how you talked about fitness, for example, and how that might motivate you to become a barrister or might make you a good barrister, reminded me of this, because anything, I say this to people all the time, anything that a person has done, whether it's legal, non-legal, voluntary, pro bono, professional, like part-time work, academic, extracurricular, a hobby, whatever it is, will have given you some kind of skill, firstly, that will stand you in good stead as a barrister. And actually, a lot of them often give you something that I think relates to practice area and things like that. So yeah. I totally agree on that. The point about marking criteria for pupillage applications, I wish I'd known about them. It's literally like having a mark scheme with you when you write it. Yeah. And I think it's so helpful to have that open when you're drafting your applications, because you can almost kind of specifically like kind of allow them to give you a tick for each thing, like make sure you're demonstrating that those criteria really deliberately. And then on the kind of drafts and spending so long on each application, so I did like maybe 3 or 4 drafts for each one, and I made my partner look at every single one of those drafts in case somehow I'd like put a typo in the third one. And he looked at all of them so many times that he now still quotes them back to me, which is incredibly mean, because it's obviously a relatively, like, dare I say, cringy style of writing that I use. So I think a lot of really good stuff there. You did mention kind of talking about your experiences and how they made you stand out and allowed you to give a really authentic and kind of sincere answer to why you want to be a barrister and things like that. So going back to the question that I've kind of hinted at a lot, with all of that experience that you've had, did you find it hard to select from that specific examples for staff questions or competency questions, that sort of thing? Like, how did you know what to talk about?
I'm going to come on to this, but what you said about your partner really resonates with me, because I had actually one person who he is now just starting pupillage in the criminal set, and he was, I wouldn't have got pupillage without him. He literally, he gave me such good feedback, and very brutal feedback that he still remembers it, which was quite funny. Coming on to your question, sorry. I think it was really the people who were reviewing my applications pinpointing to me what experiences will make me stand out. And like you said, it was because I only had 6 months of actual legal work experience. It was my mooting experiences. It was vocalized that I'd taken part in. Anything to do with criminal law, my mock trials, it was my minis that came out. But it was not including, because I've had such a vast career. I didn't include everything in my second round, actually. I only included the top 3 experiences that I thought had transferable skills, that I thought would be interesting, and that I thought that I made a difference. The roles that really stood out to me, and it was those 3 that I used. And I've always been told with everything, 3 points. You always have to give, and this might not work for everybody, but it worked for me. It was, what are your 3 main points? And you dig out experiences according to those.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it, because as you were saying earlier, at the end of the day, it's a tired barrister who's going to be marking these applications, and you can't talk about everything that you've done. So that sounds like a really solid way of getting the key information across that you needed to make your applications relevant to the sets and to the practice area that you're applying to, whilst also demonstrating your breadth and depth of experience that you had as well. I want to ask about your interviews. How were the interviews that you did across either round, really? If there's anything particular you want to talk about, was there anything that came up that you weren't expecting or that was different to how you'd imagined it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your first 2 rounds, because it sounds quite similar. But my first, as I mentioned, I had one amazing interview, and one car crash of an interview. But like I said, the head of client there was really lovely, and he really, he spent an hour with me giving me feedback, which to this day I really appreciate. I didn't. Yeah, I was shocked by that, because I was totally like, car crash, never going to be a criminal barrister. That's it, end of the journey for me. It was all, I'm very dramatic, so it was all doomsday for me till that call came. The first, I'd say that was a car crash because, so I'm from India and I'm from a very different education system. I was never brought up in the UK system. I never had the experiences that everyone in the UK has. So I never had debating experience. I grew up in I went to a convent school in the south of India, and so very, very different education. And so for me, it was that debate. I was caught off guard, and I wasn't good at debating initially. I didn't prepare enough on it. And that was why my first interview, the first round, was a car crash. Now, coming to the second round, this is a great story because I nailed every single debate question there was. I knew, in fact, I was sometimes like, oh my God, did that just come out of me? I was on fire. But again, I had so much help. I had a really good friend on the course teach me. He's from Cambridge, so he taught me how to debate. All my friends at the bar would do practice sessions with me. I'm a really, really hard worker. I always say I haven't taken a day off in over 2 years, which is, I'm not advocating for that, but I worked really hard at learning the skills that I didn't have. I learned how to debate. I did research into every topical question that could come, because I was good at the interview questions, about myself, about my experiences. I've been in the corporate world, so I know how to answer all of that. In fact, it was a lovely comment from one of the offers that I got on offer day, and she said, "We've never had someone interview like you." And that was, I just, that comment was just so sweet, because it just brought to life the hard work that I'd done for about 6 months. But it was really preparing. It was research. I dedicated a lot of time. I started the bar course in January, and alongside the course, I spent nearly every day preparing, because as soon as I finished the applications, I did enormous research I had this notebook. Anna Williams advocates for this notebook, the black book for debate questions.
Oh, yeah.
And I did that. I literally did that every day. I'd do a new debate topic. I'd listen to news events. I'd go for debates. I'd go for moods. I'd go for just topical classes that would help me with this. And so I think all of that really helped me with my interviews. I did 12 first rounds, and I have to say I was exhausted. I didn't think I'd get so many second rounds. Some of the interviews that I thought were complete disasters, I got second rounds at. The ones that I thought I did really well, I didn't get second rounds at.
Oh my gosh, I had that as well. So confusing.
Yeah, I do. It's so confusing. You just don't know. You have no idea what they're looking for. It was a complete mystery to me. But I have 5 second rounds, and I did all 5 on offer day. So I had another one on the week after, but that 26th was probably one of the hardest days of my life. And I'll come on to a story later, but I also made a mistake in one of my interviews. But they were so lovely. I got an offer from them. I didn't think I would, but I redeemed myself because it was my final interview and I'd made a huge mistake. But it was really tough. All my friends tell me I'm really energetic and I have a lot of energy, but that took it out of me. It was the most challenging day, I'd say, of my life.
I think, firstly, yes, it sounds like it. And I hope that you do now have a day off, particularly after that, because you've definitely earned it. But I think that actually touches on something that isn't talked about very often with pupillage interviews across first and second rounds, which is it is really exhausting and you need a lot of stamina to keep up with it. And that is true whether a person has had a couple of rejections and only has got one interview. Actually, it's hard work and it's tiring coping with those rejections and then preparing for the interview. And it's also true if you have had, like you did, 12 interviews in a row. And I think finding ways to kind of pace yourself and make sure you're looking after things in the background. So for you, it sounds like fitness and sleep and kind of eating well is so important in those months. So I would encourage anyone who's going into an interview period for pupillage to bear that in mind. I think also just to highlight something you were saying about being a hard worker and really using the experience that you'd had with the debate question not going right or not having that experience with debate questions as fuel to then become incredible at them. One of the things that is nice about pupillage interviews, there aren't all that many, one of the things that's nice about them, even if it doesn't end up taking you through to a second round or taking you through to an offer, is it's such good experience. And after my first 2 interviews I had in my first year of applying, I kind of realised that they were so valuable in and of their own right for showing me the areas that I would need to work on, what my weaker points in them were, and then just having that practice and getting used to being in that sort of environment. So again, something I would kind of encourage everyone to do if they've got an interview is view that as a success anyway, because also it's really competitive to get an interview, and maybe make a note after of what you feel went right, what didn't go so well. I'm curious to ask you about the mistake, but I also just super quickly wanted to ask how you mentioned the Black Book, but how you prepared for topical debate questions, because I remember feeling so overwhelmed because I was like, there's just so much out there and I can't know everything about everything. And for me, podcasts were my way through. I already read the news and I was kind of keeping up with the Guardian legal page and things like that, but I'm not someone that reads the Financial Times every day. I'm just not. And I found I was able to listen to legal podcasts, debate podcasts, things like Law and Disorder was amazing. Just on my commute on my way in. And then I also had a notebook or my phone if I don't have a notebook with me where I'd jot stuff down. But yeah, what was your approach for wading through the topical quagmire?
Yeah, it was so I also got a lot of feedback from my first, so just to come back to that point, not only taking down what I did well and what went wrong, but also getting feedback. And you can always ask. Not everyone gives feedback, but you can ask sense for it. On preparing, it was for me. It was podcasts. It was attending Anna has a Wednesday's debate session, particularly for this. I got a lot out of it. A lot of my friends, knew how to debate and didn't need to do that, but I got a lot out of attending every Wednesday and debating against students or thinking about different topics. For me, it was criminal law, so it was narrowing down what are the topics this year, because there's a bunch of topics from previous years, but what are the really topical issues? Listening to podcasts, looking at Chamber's website, reading the news there, subscribing to the newsletters to see what, someone would have written an article about it or a blog about it, and that would come up as a debate question. Talking to barristers, talking to criminal barristers. When I was doing pupillage this round, the court system, sentencing guidelines, those were big news topics, and they were going to come up, and they did come up in multiple interviews. So it was really keeping abreast of the news, particularly listening to criminal podcasts. I listened to so many of them. I went for events. Events at the inns were so helpful because some of them just to do with particular, like for me, there were different talks, one for criminal law, there was others for common law and public law and commercial. But I went for the criminal talk, and I got loads of recommendations, what newsletters I should subscribe to, Crime Line Weekly, what I should be reading. And so all of that really helped me prepare. And it was the little black book, because I have to write things down. And so I would do it as, in fact, all my friends got really bored of me and my family, because every time I'd speak to them, I'd just be like, give me a debate topic. I need to do this. So I did pros and cons, and everything I'd write down. I would write down 3 points. Before I went into each Pupillage interview, I had a file for each set of chambers. This is over the top, but I had a file for each set of chambers.
I also did.
Because also I had... Oh, did you? Oh, I'm so glad, because people laughed at me because I just had so many points that I'd written down. I wrote down stats for everything to do with the backlog, everything to do with the Crown Court, everything to do with the Levinson review or the Gork review, whatever was in the news. I picked it up and I did points on it, and I prepared pros and cons of. It's also thinking through, what do I think in the future would make sense. They'd give the Gork review would talk about different types of courts, or not getting rid of jury trials, and I'd think about it and really, what are my thoughts? I don't want to just copy what everyone else is saying. So what are my particular thoughts on the subject? And I'd write them down, and that was how I did it.
Nice. Okay, that's all incredibly helpful. I think the act of writing pros and cons is so good. Something that someone told me when I did my first ever kind of bar-related interview, which was for my in scholarship, was because I interviewed at Gray's, and they always give you a debate question that you can prepare in advance. And I was told to jot down, obviously, the 3 points that I was going to make to support my position, but in the last minute or 2 minutes of prep time, to jot down even just 2 points I could make in the other direction. Because sometimes you do get to the end of a debate question and then the interviewer says, okay, now argue the opposite. Or even if it isn't that kind of blunt, they will then most likely follow up or intervene with something that you've already thought about because you jot down points on the other side. So I think, pros and cons is such a good way of doing it.
Such a good way. I constantly got that, by the way. Every single, especially on final, I was grilled. I don't know why. I got a nice grilling on either. So I'd be like, argue this side, argue the other side. And unfortunately, when I did Pupillage interviews, it was a Supreme Court ruling that came out on biological sex. And so that was a big topic. And I was grilled on that, on my views and arguing both ways. So definitely pros and cons. Make sure you write them.
100%. We don't have too long left, so I want to ask if you're happy to talk about it, and you really don't have to be, but about the mistake that you made. If you don't want to talk about the kind of actual mistake, sort of how you turn that interview around, because you got an offer from them. So how did you kind of, in that moment, I don't know if you realized you made the mistake in the moment, how you kind of bolstered yourself, came back from it, and continued to put on?
It was the most embarrassing mistake. I did realize I'd made the mistake. It was, I'm not going to mention the set, but it was one of my last interviews, and I was exhausted. I'd just done 4. It was 4? Was it 4? Yeah, I'd done 4, and I went in, and they asked me about a case. Now, I knew all the sets that I had final rounds with, because I love them all and I knew them inside out. I knew all the cases and all the barristers. My research was really 100%. I actually got feedback that they have not seen someone who is so prepared from some of my interviews. But that particular one, I was asked the question on, could you give us a case and a barrister from the set that you know of or that you've read about? And I knew this so well, but I made a mistake, and I talked about a case and a barrister from a different set, from one of my other sets. And I was mortified, because as soon as I said it, I saw it was a panel about 10 people, and I saw faces being like, sorry, what are you talking about? But they were so lovely. I have to say, they were so, so lovely. They knew I was exhausted. And I didn't tell them then, but when I made that mistake, I was like, I'm so sorry. I apologized for it. I took ownership. I said, I have been through 4 final rounds. I'm really tired today. Please don't hold this against me. Could I? And they were lovely. They said, you don't want to think about it and come back to it. I couldn't think about it. And they gave me a few minutes, not a few, I'd say about a minute. and I couldn't think about it. And it was really awkward sitting there surrounded by 10 people. So they were, again, they saw, I was a little frazzled, and they went on to the next question. While I was answering the next question, it came back to me. So I answered the next question, and then I came back and I said, this is it. It was a rape case, and it was a historic case. And I mentioned it. I mentioned every single detail. I mentioned the barrister. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And I apologized so many times. And they were lovely. They said, I said, please don't hold this against me. I really thought they would. But one of the barristers there said, do you know what this shows? You can think on your feet. You can multitask. You came back. You made a mistake. You took ownership and you came back from it. And that was so reassuring for me. I still, though, when I left, I was still apologetic and upfront, and I didn't think I would get an offer there. Honestly, I was mortified. You always hear stories about the bar and how barristers are, and I thought it was a really bad mistake. But I got an offer from them. It was actually the first offer. Funnily enough, it was the first offer I got. I really wanted to take it, but I had other offer. I had another set that was my top set. So yeah.
I think actually partly the reason why they would have not held it against you is because you took ownership of it and responsibility for it. I had a, honestly not quite to the same extent, but I did have a kind of slightly similar slip up in one of my first round interviews. I'd mentioned a case in my application and I'd revised all my applications before I went in, and it was so stupid. But I'd worked on the case in the Court of Appeal, and they were on it, and I just completely hit a mind blank and totally forgot what it was about. And again, I thankfully said, I'm really sorry. I've just had a total mind blank. Please bear with me. And I think this is something that is really good to know, actually, is if you do have that moment of panic where you completely forget something, or you do slip up, or as you say, I mean, as I was saying earlier, interviews are tiring. You had 5 in one day. Of course you were going to be tired. That does happen. And I think it looks worse to just pretend it hasn't. And I think those are the scenarios where a panel is probably going to then write a person off because they've made a mistake, but they kind of have sort of pretended they haven't or carried on. Whereas to do what you did and just be like, I'm really sorry. I'm really tired. Here's why I made this mistake, and be really, really upfront and proactive about it for the reasons that you said that one of the panel said is really impressive, because it shows that you can come back from a setback. It shows you can think on your feet, as you said. Also just shows that you're upfront and clear.
Yeah, and human.
Yeah.
Human, I think that was, I got that feedback so much from all my final rounds. It was, we really loved how honest, I was really honest. I didn't, everything came from within. And I was just real in those interviews. I was also, at that point, I was so tired, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it my best shot. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I was fully prepared to do another round. I thought I'm going to do another round. Nothing's going to come through. But it was, just being super honest and real about everything. And I think that was, and Jade, your first point, you asked me about my experiences. I thought coming into the process, I didn't have a law degree. I'm not a white man from Oxford or Cambridge. I'm from India. I'm a woman. I immigrated to the UK by myself. I don't have a first. I've got a 2-1. I am not what a traditional barrister looks like, and I did not think that I could make it. And I thought, they're going to choose someone who is straight, and some sets do. They do choose people who are from Oxford and Cambridge, who have an undergrad law degree, who have done amazing. There are amazing experiences that people have had. And everyone at the bar has phenomenal experiences. Everyone has a scholarship. I didn't have any of that initially. But it was using what I had to help me. And it was also, I think it was a resilience. When I applied the second time, I didn't have my scholarship, but I had got it by the time I went into interviews. And so I made sure I said that at my interview. This is the second time. And I didn't lie about it. I said, this is the second time round, but I did get 2 major awards. And so, that also was a plus. But I thought it was always negative that I didn't have the traditional path and the traditional law degree. And actually, having 10 years of experience, one of the panelists told me in one of my final interviews, I was able to hold my ground. I was able to answer the ethical questions because I've had that experience, because I knew, what to do and how to push back. And they pushed me. They really, really pushed me. But it was having that experience that I think made me a better interviewee and hopefully a better advocate.
That's so lovely to hear. And I hope that anyone listening to this really, really, really takes on board what you said about that they're not really being a typical barrister anymore. Or yeah, I mean, sure, as you say, at some sets there maybe is. But if you are a hard worker, if you are resilient, if you're willing to face those setbacks, and as you say, be honest, which is a really scary thing to be. It's actually really scary to be yourself, I think, sometimes in applications and in interviews. But it is the way forward. And clearly, I mean, it's worked out sparklingly for you. So huge congratulations. And yeah, I just wanted to say, Myria, thank you so much for being on the podcast, for all of your incredible pearls of wisdom, and for being really honest. And I can see why you did so well in interviews, just like from talking to you in the podcast. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much. I absolutely love that.